much and welcome once again. It's my privilege to be moderating this particular panel. Introductions are out of the way, so I'm not going to spend time on that, and I'm going to jump right into the conversation. But before I do that, I wanted to offer a little bit of a different introduction of people that you have on the stage here. Professor, I think everybody knows. He's a Padma Shri. To me, the most important part of what I know of him is a person who has been a mentor to well over 350 startups. And I think his vision to create many, many more still kind of challenges all of us to be able to start to think about ecosystem in a very, very, very different fashion. But on this panel here, and I'm going to start with Mr. Santhanam. His association with him, as you saw, is almost 40 years plus. And it has been an association of somebody who's worked with him, somebody who's basically one of the first multinational companies that came into the research park in a very, very, very big way and started to kind of think about backing that vision. We have Mr. Arun here, and his introduction, interaction with Professor started way back in the early 90s with the starting of or creation of something called the Bharat Trust, which was effectively, in a variety of ways, a way for equity investment to find its ways into entrepreneurs. And over a period of time, there have been many, many more interactions through him being a board member at Polaris, and there have been many of those kinds of interactions. We have Mr. Siddiqui here, and of course, he was a student, so very, very different kind of an interaction with him. Saloni set up her first company directly under the mentorship of Professor. And I'm going to basically take the opportunity in a minute to talk about how I got associated with Professor before I started to offer questions to everybody. For this panel, I'm going to follow a little bit of a boring format. What I'm going to do is request each of my panelists to talk a story about Professor that they remember and that has left a deep impact on them. So it will give them a minute or two to kind of think about the story as I talk about how I got associated with Professor. I first met Professor when I was 23 years old. I was a part of ICICI Bank, and I came down to the same 312 to be able to meet Professor. And the context was, how do we set up a low-cost ATM for this country? And in those days, you used to be a customer of a bank. A customer of a bank branch. ICICI Bank was amongst the champions of technology. And in those days, ICICI had fewer than 500 ATMs, but it was the bank with the largest number of ATMs in the country. In those days, the car to buy for was Maruti Swift, and the price of one ATM was greater than 2.5 Swifts. In terms of that is basically what it used to cost, and there was no way a country like ours could afford something like this. And somewhere my boss Nachiket, Mr. Baghul, and Professor had spoken to say that we could create a low-cost ATM which could serve the country. So my first visit really was in that context. In the first visit, I was taken to a place where I still remember Kannan showed us a prototype. What I saw was basically a machine which made a lot of noise. Paper came out of which was cut into the shape of currency, but paper did come out of it. But I think what I took away that day was this incredible belief that there is a possibility of designing these kinds of technologies in India and create it at a price point which is not going to be affordable only for the rich. It was an ATM that could be put in back or beyond of the country because it is going to be that low cost. And I think that visit got me to come and interact with Professor a lot more. I was there very regularly. And somewhere around 2005, 2006, I came to know of NLOG and the fact that there is a possibility of connectivity somewhere in deep remote geographies. And as a person who was a banker, I suddenly thought, this is the one challenge that had not been solved till now. And with connectivity being solved, we can now set up high quality branches which can offer wealth management services to rural customers. Why only give them credit? Why only give them poor savings products? We can actually take it to scale. And soon enough, I had left my job at ICICI and moved to Chennai. This place became Karmibhu. And 2 years later, we rented a full floor at IIT Madras Research Park, and I have been associate professor since then. So that's been my kind of story of association professor. He's continued to inspire us. He's continued to make sure that we have always thought about the fact that what can we do for the 80 to 100 crore people that nobody is designing for? And I think that is one thing that has always stayed with me. Every time I have gone to him, I have always been challenged to say that how can you take it to not 1x scale, not 2x scale, but 30x scale or 50x scale? So I'm going to stop here. I think that gives my panelists enough time to have thought about their stories. So let me start with Siddiqui.
Thank you, everyone. Distinguished guests, and of course, Professor Junjunwala sir. Yes. See, I am sort of different from the rest here. I was a rogue student of both Junjunwala sir and Bhaskar Ramamurthy there, sir, Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthy there. And I left communication for public service. He stayed in communication for public service. That is the difference. Yes. Out of 29 in my batch, I was the only person to stay back in India in electronics and communication because I wanted to work in India. I wanted to serve here. And the difference is his style was totally different. He stayed here, he lived here, and he did great public service here by bringing communication to everybody, the communication engineering to everybody. In fact, he taught us, he was our Jun, we used to call him Jun sir. And in those days, he was the only person in this entire teaching community who was a businessman. And the rest taught theory. And I mean, that's what, frankly speaking, that's what I used to love, theory. Problems theory. You give me big circuits, I used to solve within few minutes, solve all those things. But then that's what, as a student, I liked. But when I stepped out of IIT, then I got into the service. Then through the years, I learned that what Sir has contributed far more than anybody else. Because he brought engineering for common public use. That is the biggest thing which he did. I met him after I did my engineering, passed out in 1993 from BTech Electronics Communication. He taught me for almost 3 years, he taught me. And then again, after intermittent meetings, I met him somewhere around 2008, by which time he had already introduced many innovations which had already been grounded into had already been in the field in many places. So, sir, thank you so much for all that you have done for the nation. And this is something we all have to cherish. And this is really great that today that your biography is there for everyone to read and learn from your life. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ashok I met sometime in 1991 through a friend of mine who was working in PPST, which was an organization which was for science and technology for the nation. And through that network, I got connected, and first few meetings we were talking about the communication problem of India. I think there was 100,000 landlines that time, and we used to talk about 10 million landlines, 10 million communication connection, and that's a where the entire thinking was. So all of us will not believe that the number of telephone landlines were, it was 100,000 or some 500,000 in 90s. So it is not so far away. 35 years back, there was only certain privileged people who used to have a phone lines. And that is the time when professor start talking about wireless local loop technology. And that the time challenge was taken that how can we take it to villages, the wireless local loop technology, and that is the only way we can reach to million, and then we can reach to 10 million lines of code, lines. So that's one first inspiring conversation, because that makes me coming more closer to it. And wireless local loop, what can we do, what kind of companies are required, what kind of systems are required. Midas came into picture, that time the company came into picture, what kind of an ecosystem is required, because for that line system it is not possible for one technology company to make a difference. That has to be delivered in local loop. And that's how the Bharat Trust Extra came into picture. And then journey moved on. He joined the board, Polaris board, when we were also starting in 93, I started Polaris. So Ashok joined the board sometime in 97, 98, I don't remember the exact year in which he joined the board and navigated and made Polaris a brand in technology world. So which is, Polaris got benefited from his presence. Other point of time in IIT Research Park, since we are talking about Santhanam Research Park, the first conversation on Research Park happened sometime in year 99 or 2000. Me and Ashok were 98, we were just talking that we need to have a research park in India. And then after 1 year, we invited IT secretaries. That Prakash used to be the IT secretary at that time. So 3 of us spent some time that we need to have IT research park, because for any innovation center to be there, if I came, Silicon Valley has got Stanford University of Berkeley to support the innovation hubs. So in Chennai, we need to have a research park. It took some time for taking that dream into action, because of IIT never wanted to give even a space for the research park. I was quite surprised to see that 500 acres of IIT cannot give 2 acres of the land for IT research park as a building, and how kind of a bureaucracy can be there in an educational institution. It was quite frustrating. I was assuming that IT research park land should come from IT itself, and IT said, no, we don't have a land. Yeah, this is something which first time I realized that the boundary walls which happens in educational institutions are bigger than any word ka real meaning acharya is come from professor. If acharya who can inspire student, who can expand the thinking process of the students, or thinking process of not the students, but to the community around it. Wherever he spends meeting, is expanding the thinking process. So your canvas gets expanded, it gets scaled up. So scaling up will not be 2x, 3x, it will be 10x minimum, not 50x to 100x. He will love to have it 100x as a basic canvas expansion. And that thinking expansion, once it's done, that is where what you call startup. I think startup ecosystem is wrong vocabulary over here. This is basically scaled companies to be creating, is because first you set up a thinking process right, then you help them in thinking right. So first is thinking scale, and then you ask them to think right by asking right question. So professor, the true teacher, asks the right question, which enables a individual to think in a right direction, that which is a key point he has to address, and which simple question, or what I call it first principle thinking, why particular technology should be there. For ATM technology, what Santanam mentioned, the ATM technology, or you mentioned ATM technology, get into the first root of the ATM, that's all. And then technology, the belief comes from the first principle thinking. And that's the core of a professor who has helped with me in many other initiatives. So thank you, Professor, to be part of my life and being part of my journey of questioning. Thank you.
Since you asked for a story, I'll share one which I think it's much before when I had met him and we had started the company. We had signed up some good customers and we were facing what every company goes through. There is going to be no cash to pay salaries very soon. I had never experienced that. Sorry, I had never experienced that in my life. I had 300 odd employees, or maybe, no, I think we had 120. Our salary bill was 10 lakhs for the month. I had 2 months of cash in the bank. I had a term sheet on the table, and the term sheet had a clause that if the founder is asked to leave or chooses to leave, then she must offer all her shareholding to the existing shareholders at a price decided by the board. I sent the term sheet to him, I circled that thing. I said, Professor, do you think I should sign this? He said, this is bullshit. You can't, sorry for my language. He said, you cannot sign this. Yeah. He said, this is ridiculous. You cannot sign this. I went to 2 people at that time. I went to my father and I went to him. And he took out his checkbook. He got a check for 10 lakh rupees of his personal money. And he said, pay your salaries and go fight this. And on the other side, my father transferred the only home that he had in his name to me. He said, go to the bank and get a loan. Prof heard that. He said, no, there is a scheme that the government has come up with called the Credit Guarantee Scheme. It's a collateral-free loan. You will apply for that. He fought on the board that we will apply for that loan. He fought with SBI because they refused to give us the loan. And like Puneet, you said very beautifully, which we've captured in the book many times, that when Profs backs you, he doesn't knock on the door. He makes sure the door opens and the work gets done. I must say that that loan was probably the best money that our company ever received in our entire lifetime. And I have spoken about that loan to so many young entrepreneurs and asked them to apply for it. 19 years in, that loan still runs in the company. And we don't shut it down because it's a little bit of a important thing for us. So I think that story just remained with me, and the faith that he had in us is why we are at 19 years still continuing to function. So thank you.
Before you put the mic down.
Sorry?
Before you put the mic down.
Yes.
Why the book?
So during COVID, I lost my father in the second wave. And there was music is my solace. So there was a very beautiful song which won the Grammy around that time. It said, bring my flowers while I'm living. I don't need your love when I'm gone. And that got me thinking about all the people that I really wanted to express love and gratitude and affection to. Professor Jhunjhunwala, Professor Bhaskar, Professor Tag were really at the top of my list. And I had to start somewhere amongst a few other people, but I wanted to say thank you to him, show my love, my gratitude and my affection, and that is what got me to write the book, because I couldn't understand what else to give him. He doesn't like physical things. I can't give him a gift. What else can I give him? I don't know. So that's how I ended up writing the book.
Thank you so much. Thanks. I think that is a gift for all of us. So big thank you from our side. Arun, we've all seen Professor, and we've heard about his impatience at times. He was also a board member for you. How was he as a board member? I would shudder. So
yeah, the board member has two roles basically. Ashok used to play the role of to make the board accountable. So sometimes difficult questions are there, sometimes difficult conversations are there in board. So it is our board fortunately used to have Ashok, R.C. Bhargav, Balraman, all the strong people on the board. So it always made me more accountable than any other board. And Ashok and Bhargav Saab, when they come together, or Bhargav Saab and Balraman come together, or Ashok and Balraman come together, then any issue which is there on the board becomes very, very good conversation, I would say. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, you carry on with your own conviction and you need some guardrails for looking at it. So Ashok provided that kind of a guardrail, whether it's a technology-related guardrail or a management-related guardrail.
thank you so much for sharing that. Santanam, you talked about Professor in a big way. I think I should have not allowed you to go prior. It would have been a great summary for all of us in any case. But I still want to hear a story that you still think is one that people should know. It's something that perhaps if it's not in the book, that's even better.
Yeah. One, I think I already talked a little bit about the Saint-Gobain story. I don't think Saint-Gobain would ever have come into a facility which it doesn't own 100%, but for Ashok's persuasion. And large multinationals, there are multiple people who can say no, and there is only one or two who can say yes. And I think he was able to reach out to all of those, and he really went all out to make sure that Saint-Gobain becomes an anchor client. But more importantly, I think for me, it's touched a little bit in the first phase. We didn't have cash. IIT Madras Research Park had 100 crore loan, what was supposed to be a grant initially. Then they said it's a concessional loan, and later on it turned out to be a loan at Usuri's interest rate of 12%, right? So what was a 100 crore grant originally became a thing, and very surprisingly, IIT Bombay got the grant, whereas IIT Madras got this what was originally termed as a concessional loan. And I do remember, I think Bhaskar is here, and I think Professor Anand and Ashok. I think, I don't know, maybe multiple visits. Yeah? 2000, no, it was in 2006, 7.
Yeah, 7, 8 was
7, 8 was a loan. 12 was when, 12 we converted that, and we paid back that 136 crores. Fortunately, it was not compounding interest, it was simple interest. I don't know how the bureaucrat didn't think of compounding it. But they gave us eventually a 136 crore grant, and we paid that off. But for me, it was really a lesson in a startup, and I was witnessing in every board the fight for every little thing. And what we have created, perhaps if it had been another company, we would have spent another 50% more. And it's really Ashok's negotiation. And he used to call Shapurji Palanji, he picked them up. And then they said, okay, you have to come. And they said 400 crores. He said some 250 crores. And we finally settled for 300 crores. That's how we shaved off 100 crores. I don't think any one of us would have been able to do that, because he would not allow them to go out of the room without committing. And they delivered really, the phase 2 was particularly world class. And we had Hafiz contractor. And now we are dreaming about the phase 3 with Natus trying to do, following the footsteps of the great Ashok. So for me, every board meeting was a lesson. And the one which I think Shankar also was here. I think we had the incubation RBTI and IIT Madras. It was a combined board. And where he talked about his 10x vision. And he talked about the ranchos. It's also covered in the book. I think in every one of this, he was always stretching your mind. And for me, stretching beyond the horizon of your imagination. And I think that is really what, for me, a takeaway at all times whenever I was interacting with him. Another thing which is touched upon again in the book is, you send him an SMS or a mail. It's 1 minute, a quick response. Let's meet. I'll call you now. Can you come on this date? And that's how it is. And I think there was, with all of his impatience, he included everyone in his decision matrix. You might think that he's the one who's decided everything. He included that. And then there is also a tremendous amount of feedback he learns. In the first phase, we didn't have money. And we went to an architect who delivered us a very frugal design. But he realized that this is not what we wanted. The next time we went from Kirti Shah to Hafiz contractor. I think the fee was 100x or something like that difference. But we delivered a world-class thing. So there was a certain amount of listening, even if it appeared to be impatient, which is there right through. So I've had at least probably 2 to 4 board meetings for some 17 years. So really 50 odd board meetings. And every one of that choreographed beautifully. And even though it was a Section 8 company, we had a board audit committee, which is not mandated by Companies Act. We had a nomination and remuneration committee. We had every one of the committees that you would find in high quality companies with solid governance. That is it. So there was a lot of impatience with inertia with bureaucracy, as I mentioned, but that impatience did not mean forgetting the process. So that's what comes to my mind, that you can actually dream so much, but still have your governance rooted.
Thank you so much for that.